Welcome everyone, wherever you're joining us from. This is the Sunday morning Insight Meditation Community of Washington class. We've had a class on Sunday morning I've been teaching on Sunday morning going back to 2003, actually even before I was involved in IMCW. And this is also offered by the Center for Mindful Living, IMCW's center we had in Tenley Town in Northwest DC, but now is just virtual, at least for the next period. And you'll hear more about the center and its activities and announcements at the end. So welcome everyone. I hope everyone feels warmly welcomed here. Please let us know if you're new, and we can give you a warm welcome to the community. Yes, I'm Hugh Byrne. I mentioned that, and teacher with IMCW, and we're together at a kind of a tense time in the world, aren't we? With all of the threats against Ukraine and the potential for conflict to begin very soon. And so I'd invite us all to hold the people of Ukraine in our hearts today and in our practice, sending them kindness, compassion, and I hope our practice can be a vehicle of bringing more peace into the world, and more peaceful solutions to conflicts. The more we're connected with ourselves and our own hearts, the more we're able to engage with others and in the world from a less defended and fear-based place and a more open-hearted place. And so these practices are powerful supports for peace and for connection and for kindness in the world. So holding all that together and everything else. It continues to be a challenging time. Today, I want to continue with the exploration of what are called the seven factors of awakening, these seven qualities that the Buddha said we need to cultivate if we're going to wake up, if we're going to find a way out of the tangles of our lives and cultivate the deepest freedom that's possible in this human existence. And today I'll talk about the second of these qualities, which is the quality of investigation. Of being really curious and interested in our experience and exploring it. So we'll begin with a meditation, followed by a talk, and then Emily will lead us in some movement. Then we'll have time for some sharing and another meditation to finish. And what I'll do, as I did last week, is I'll invite some of the reflection on this quality of investigation into the meditation. So we're dealing with it not just as a kind of conceptual idea, but looking at it much more in our practice. What does it mean to investigate? So with that, invite us all to find a posture that's comfortable and relaxed. Take some moments to make any adjustments in your posture so you can sit in a dignified, alert way, letting your chest be open so you can breathe easily. Inviting the shoulders to relax, maybe just bringing your awareness to that area, and just inviting a natural relaxing. Letting your hands rest in your lap or on your knees or on your thighs. letting the eyes close if that's comfortable for you. And just letting yourself settle into your posture. The posture, as well as creating the kind of the physical grounding for being here for your practice, also helps create the kind of the mental and attitudinal relationship. Help us be here. So the more relaxed and comfortable and at ease we can be, while being alert, engaged, the more we can open to all that's arising in the body and the heart and the mind. And as a way of of settling, arriving and settling, you might let your breath deepen, take a few longer, deeper breaths. Nice full deep in breath, filling the chest, filling the lungs, and then releasing on the out breath. Breathing in, calming the body. Breathing out, calming the mind. You might imagine that on the out breath, you're releasing any tension, tightness, just letting it go, letting yourself settle and be here. If you can invite an attitude of kindness to your experience. You might invite a smile to your face. It's consciously coming in to the expression of a smile around the eyes, around the mouth. If it's helpful, thinking of a loved one, somebody who easily makes you feel happy or joyful. You might invite the smile down into the body, into the heart area. You might let the smile be a kind of expression of how you want to meet whatever's arising, just meeting it with the attitude, the expression of a smile. You could take a moment or two to reflect on some things in your life that you feel grateful for, that you appreciate, thankful for. People, loved ones, friends, maybe conditions. measure of good health, financial security, well-being. Maybe your practice, your spiritual practice or religious practice. So much that we can be thankful for, even if things are difficult, when things are hard. We can come back, and we spend a lot of our time focused on what's wrong or what we're lacking or what we don't have. And just making that shift to reflect on gratitude can help us step out of that kind of more looking at the world as a problem in some way. Just coming back, letting yourself take in what you feel grateful for. Could silently, quietly say thank you. And opening to what's present right now in the body and in the heart, in the mind. Just noticing what's present and meeting what's here with as much kindness as you can. Meeting what's here with acceptance. Can I say yes to this, whatever this might be right now? Can I make space for it? If it's helpful, letting the breath be a focus or an anchor for your awareness. Just a light attention, light awareness of breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, and knowing that you're breathing in. Breathing out, knowing that you're breathing out. Alternatively, if the mind feels fairly calm and settled, you might just let your awareness be open. Just observing, aware of what's arising moment to moment. Imagine your mind is like the sky with things come up and pass through, sounds come up, like a cloud passing through the sky or a bird. The sky remains open and spacious. In the same way, our mind can hold all of everything that's arising, just letting it come and go, rise and pass in this open space of awareness. With mindfulness, we're simply being aware of what's here moment to moment. We could focus on a specific object like the breath, bringing mindfulness to our breathing. Excuse me. Or we could just rest in an open awareness and just be aware of what comes up. Thought comes up, you notice it and then it goes. Or a thought comes up and you don't notice it and you get pulled into it and you follow it for a while. And then you notice, oh, I'm lost in thought. You kind of come out and come back, let go, come back. Just this simple, non-judging awareness of our experience. And as we bring awareness to our experience, we can kind of probe more deeply. Something we're aware of, something like resistance or judgment coming up, or restlessness. We can focus the attention. What's this like? What am I aware of? You might notice tightening in the muscles and the belly and the chest. We can investigate our experience, kind of dig in a little bit closer, scrutinize, pay attention. And with investigation, what we're exploring is kind of the deepest level is really, is this helpful or is it unhelpful? Does it lead to well-being or does it lead to stress and suffering, unhappiness? Just to notice that. And we can notice that in all of our experience. We could look at our relationship to our experience and we can see, is this skillful? Is this a skillful relationship or is it an unskillful one? if you notice that you're feeling tired and you don't like it and you judge yourself for feeling tired, oh, I shouldn't be tired, oh, should have done this, should have got to bed earlier, or whatever, and you find yourself judging yourself, you might notice that as not helpful, not leading to well-being, but just leading to more stress, more worry, more suffering, more judgment. So just noticing, is this helpful? Does it lead to well-being, or does it lead to suffering, to stress, to worry? And if we notice that it's leading to, it's maybe an unskillful attitude or response, that we see it's leading to more stress and more suffering, we can invite the mind to let go. Maybe if it's the mind is judging, you might consciously just invite in a quality of compassion, of kindness to yourself. So responding to the judgment with kindness, holding yourself with kindness, with compassion. Just being aware of your experience right now. You might ask, what will lead to greater freedom right now? What will lead to more letting go of clinging, of holding, of resistance? Could be as simple as taking a deeper breath or two and just inviting the body to relax, and the mind can easily follow. Just relaxing back. Nowhere to go, nothing we need to change or do, but just opening with kindness, with acceptance to what's here. You might ask yourself, is there suffering right now? Is there suffering? there's some anguish or angst or unpleasantness or resistance, some sense of things not being the way you want them to be. And if there is, just to acknowledge that, just recognize that. And then to ask, is there anything that I'm doing that is perpetuating this suffering, this stress, this feeling of unsatisfactoriness? Anything I'm doing? Is there anything I'm holding on to? Is there anything I'm resisting? Just bringing awareness to our own involvement in the suffering. You know, if it's just a feeling of discomfort, and we can allow that, maybe a pain or discomfort, and we can allow that. We often call this the first arrow. It's just what's present. We'll get our share of pleasant and unpleasant. Maybe it's unpleasant. So, but then we easily add resistance to what's here. I don't like it. I don't want it. This should be different. And that's where we add the suffering, the second arrow. So the invitation is just to be with our direct experience. And if we notice that we're resisting or we're adding that second arrow, that struggle with the way things are, we might invite a relaxing, a releasing, a letting go. And I just open to this moment as it is. This moment in the heart space where everything that is welcome. The Buddha said all of the Dhamma is really in this practice of just being aware of suffering, the cause of suffering, and the possibility of ending the suffering, of coming into a wise and kind relationship with our experience and letting go. Is the first three of the Four Noble Truths. And the fourth is just the path of training to help us do that, to help us let go. So just for a couple of quiet minutes, you might explore the wholesome and the unwholesome, the skillful and the unskillful. Or if there's suffering or the absence of suffering, just notice that. Finish with this poem by Diane Ackerman, a poem, School Prayer. In the name of the daybreak and the eyelids of morning and the wayfaring moon and the night when it departs, I swear I will not dishonor my soul with hatred, but offer myself humbly as a guardian of nature, as a healer of misery, as a messenger of wonder, as an architect of peace. In the name of the sun and its mirrors, and the day that embraces it, and the cloud veils drawn over it, and the uttermost night, and the male and the female, and the plants bursting with seed, and the crowning seasons of the firefly and the apple. I will honor all life, wherever and in whatever form it may dwell, on earth my home, and in the mansions of the stars. Taking your time coming back into the group. So again, welcome everyone. Welcome if you joined us after the beginning of the session today, the class today. And I want to some way continue with from the meditation and talk about this second quality of investigation. Cheryl just asked a question, who wrote the poem? What was it called? It was called School Prayer by Diane Ackerman. School Prayer by Diane Ackerman. So we've been exploring these 7 qualities called the 7 factors of awakening. And I mentioned in the last couple of weeks that the first one is mindfulness. We spoke about last week, and we focus a lot on mindfulness, this kind of present moment awareness of our experience. And I talked about how mindfulness is also a balancing quality of balancing the next 3, investigation, energy, and joy, which are what are called arousing factors. They kind of bring energy and enlivening into our practice and into our minds. And then the final 3 are more stabilizing, they're more calming. Those are tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. And so I want to talk today about investigation and its role in our journey to freedom, because as I mentioned, the Buddha said these 7 qualities are, profoundly important parts of our practice or areas to practice. He said these 7 awakening factors incline towards liberation, incline towards freedom, just as the river inclines towards the ocean. He had lots of different metaphors to say this and said it many, many times, emphasizing that these 7 qualities are really powerful and are really essential to waking up, and we need to cultivate them all, and we need to kind of keep them in balance as well. That if we got too much energy, that may not be so helpful, and so to balance that with with tranquility, with concentration, with equanimity is really important. This one today that we're exploring is a really key one, in investigation. Investigation is the awakening factor which really discerns and illuminates what's true. So it has a direct relationship to freedom. It's what helps us cultivate a kind of discriminating wisdom, discriminating in a sense of wise differentiation of this is this and that's that. It really allows us to see clearly where we're suffering and to let go. And I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, with each of these factors, we have some basic tasks to work with them. First, we need to know if they're present, so we can bring awareness to, is this, is mindfulness present? Am I really aware of my experience right now? Is investigation present? Is this quality of kind of a probing our experience, being interested, being curious, kind of digging in at a deeper level, not just kind of awareness, but kind of exploring, okay, what about this? And is this different from this? And how does it feel? So first, is it present or is it absent? And then if it's absent, how do I develop it? With these wholesome qualities, if they're not present, like, oh no, there's not really much investigation at all. We can invite the arising. We can bring more curiosity to our experience. We can dig more into that kind of discerning and differentiating. And if it is present, how do I maintain it? How do I deepen it? The Buddha kind of works a lot in these binaries. It's you go this direction and it goes to suffering. You go this direction and it leads to freedom. That's kind of the fork in the road, and we're really always exploring this. Is this helpful or is it not helpful? In any moment, we're choosing. Is this? If I'm nodding off, well, probably if I look at that, I bring investigation to that. I say, no, that's probably not useful. It's not forward leading towards greater freedom. It's kind of numbing me out. It's kind of checking out. It's gravitating towards, perhaps unskillful habits. And so I can say, oh, that's where I'm going. I don't judge myself, hopefully, or beat myself up for it. I just notice, and I can incline the mind in a helpful direction. So if it's not present, we invite it to arise. If it is present, we deepen it. We work to maintain and deepen it. Bhikkhu Bodhi, great translator and scholar of the Buddha's early teachings, he spoke about this investigation factor. He says the initial function of investigation as an awakening factor is to distinguish wholesome from unwholesome mental states that become apparent with the deepening of mindfulness. So it becomes clearer to us, is this beneficial? Is it wholesome? We know that if we're caught up in anger or fear, then that's not really a wholesome state. It's gonna, if we don't just observe it and work wisely with it, we can get caught up in it, and then we can get into a lot of suffering. And when we know it from our own lives, if we get into a period of anxiety, we get anxious about things, and then we keep fueling that anxiety without awareness, then we can get into a really, very, very painful psychological, emotional, mental state, of being caught up in that. And wise attention, mindfulness, can help us to see, okay, I'm going in that direction. That's not helpful. And I can incline the mind in a more beneficial direction. So really just to that question, which I kind of also explored some in the meditation. Is this a wholesome state? Is it a beneficial state? Is it an unwholesome state? And we want to cultivate more of the former and let go of the latter, let go of the unwholesome. So what does investigation mean, and what are we doing when we're investigating? The term in Pali is Dhamma Vichaya. Dhamma Vichaya. Vichaya means Vicaya. That's for the sea. Vichaya means to investigate, to scrutinize, to analyze. So it's like we're looking in a particular way. We're scrutinizing. I was reading an article on this quality, and the writer, a monk, spoke about it as being like a jeweler. Looking at a precious jewel. Is really kind of analyzing, scrutinizing, looking at the different colors and the shapes and the whatever jewelers look at in a precious stone or a precious metal. So that quality of scrutiny, of investigation. And Dhamma is a very common word in the teachings, and it can mean almost anything. It means things, it means states, and it can mean particular states as well. So we're looking at particular states. We're bringing this scrutiny, this quality of interest, and we're doing it in a you could say in a discriminating way, in a wise discrimination way. There's so much we could investigate. We could investigate anything. There's like the whole universe to investigate. But what's really key is the Buddha makes a distinction between what's it important to investigate and what is it less important to investigate. And since the Buddha is concerned with suffering and how to end suffering in our lives, he said, "I teach suffering and its end." His whole 45 years of teaching after his awakening was to help people untangle themselves from suffering, help his followers, help those of us today to untangle themselves from suffering. That's what he was concerned with. So he wasn't, if he was asked speculative questions or abstract questions, he would tend not to answer them. That isn't of importance in terms of alleviating suffering or ending suffering. I remember a story I heard probably a couple of decades ago. Excuse me. So I don't remember a lot of the details of it, but the main elements were of an Asian teacher, an older Asian teacher who'd been teaching for decades, and a Western student who was studying with this Asian teacher. And after a while, the student studying with his teacher had, from the talks and the way the teacher spoke about different things, he had this inkling or understanding that his teacher didn't actually know that the earth was round and it revolved around the sun. He didn't know that. So the student was like, "Oh, that seems like a big deal, it's like not to know that, to think the earth was flat or not, and so in as kind a way as he can, he pointed out to the teacher that, actually, this is the way things work. This is our understanding of science and the universe and all of that. And the teacher said to him, he said, "Yes, but is that knowledge going to free you from suffering? Is that knowledge going to free you from suffering?" And that stuck with me over the years, that we can know these things. And, yes, of course, it's helpful. I'd much prefer to know the way the universe works. But actually, does it answer the question, is it going to help free me from suffering? In a direct way, I think we can say, well, probably not. There's some terrible people in the world that know that the earth goes around the sun. It's not a moral distinction. It's not a question of, these people are free and these people are suffering. Suffering comes from a different source than that. And so the Buddha is really concerned with the kind of knowing and the kind of investigation that is going to free us from suffering. That's really what he's concerned with. Other things are like ancillary, and he wouldn't take the time with them unless it was implicated really in this question of freedom from suffering. We can use different ways of seeing or lenses to investigate our experience, to free ourselves from suffering. I like that that term, ways of seeing. You know, the teacher I've relate to a lot in the recent times, Rob Babea, who died in May of 2020, he speaks a lot about ways of seeing. You know, the kind of the lenses through which we look at our experience. And we can look at this question of investigation. We can investigate using particularly helpful lenses, excuse me, to really differentiate, to distinguish, you know, what's helpful from what's unhelpful, to find what does lead us to greater freedom and what keeps us tangled up in suffering. You know, what are some of the ways of seeing that can help us investigate? One lens or way of seeing is wholesome and unwholesome. You know, just that distinction that Bhikkhu Bodhi I mentioned speaks to, skillful and unskillful. You know, at any moment we can look at our experience, we can look at how we're relating, how we're engaging with our experience and say, is this wholesome? Is my, you know, the mind state that I'm aware of right now, is this a beneficial one? Does it lead to greater happiness? Or does it lead to more entanglement and more suffering? You know, so it's a very pragmatic, experiential, and a phenomenological, you know, like what am I aware of right now? Is it this or is it that? And in any moment, we're either inclining our mind towards greater freedom, greater happiness, or we're moving in the other direction towards more suffering. So assuming that you're engaging in this moment with some level of interest in what I'm sharing, doesn't need to be perfect what I'm sharing, but some level of interest in what I'm sharing, then you're engaging in a quality, developing a quality, cultivating a quality of mindfulness and of investigation, of curiosity, you know. And that's really a foundation, probably with, you know, kindness and compassion in your heart, you know, and other qualities that support being here. So, you know, and it may change, you know, moments may come in where you might space out and you can, but basically just to know, is this wholesome or is this unwholesome? Is it skillful? How am I relating to this moment? And is it, you know, is it forward moving towards freedom? Is it inclining towards freedom as the river inclines towards the ocean? And that spotlight, really, that kind of look at our experience, that inner spotlight, is tremendously helpful. And at any moment, it can allow us to untangle ourselves if we are tangled, or to continue to move, you know, to cultivate qualities that are beneficial if we're actually are in those, experiencing those qualities at the time. You know, so that if we're lost in fantasies, we could say, does this lead to calming the mind, to being present? Does it lead to freedom? Or does it lead to being disconnected, to being tangled up, to being bored, to being absent from ourselves and our life? So we investigate in a kind and non-judging way, and we may see this isn't beneficial, and then we can choose to incline the mind. We can become interested, we can become curious, we can invite in that quality of curiosity. Another way of seeing a lens we can look at to explore our experience is one that I brought up in the meditation. That is to use the lens of suffering and the end of suffering, to just shine the spotlight of the Four Noble Truths on our experience. Right now, is there suffering? Is there the experience of resistance? Might be subtle, might be minor, but is there something that's calling for attention? And if there is something, then I can turn my attention in this way of investigation, of scrutinizing, of differentiating, of distinguishing, of looking at that experience of, okay, yeah, there does feel to be a kind of a resistance or an unsatisfactoriness. Okay. And then I can ask myself, that's the first noble truth, to be aware of the existence, the presence of suffering. And the second noble truth is to see what the cause of the suffering is. And the Buddha says the cause of suffering is craving or clinging, is some holding on. So am I holding on to anything right now? And what am I holding on to? It could be like if something was boring, it could be like, oh, I just want this to end. So it's like a clinging to that. Okay, notice that. Can I invite just awareness to that? Can I see that and invite myself to be fully present? Be aware of thoughts of boredom if they come up. Make space for it. Make space for whatever is here. Let it all come and go. So when I see my own role in the suffering, then I have the awareness to be able to let go, to say, okay, continuing to do this keeps me locked in suffering. But if I choose to let go of that belief that this has to end or this person should be different than they are, then I can just invite just a letting go, a softening and opening, and incline my mind in a direction that then leads to greater happiness and well-being. So in all of this, in just any moment of experience, we can experience the Four Noble Truths. We can see suffering or the absence of suffering, happiness, well-being. We can see the cause of suffering if there's suffering, and we can let go of suffering. We can choose to kind of go in a different direction, that will incline towards greater happiness, greater freedom. And then the fourth noble truth is just the practices, the training that helps us get there, to do that. Wise mindfulness, wise concentration, wise effort. So this is the kind of investigation that this second factor of awakening is concerned with, this kind of discriminating wisdom, this seeing clearly, and particularly seeing clearly what leads to happiness, what leads to freedom. And the more we become familiar with our experience and know where we tend to get caught, because often we get caught up in the same kind of habits over and over again. Oh, judging this person, judging myself, getting angry with somebody else, spacing out, craving, we get caught up. And none of this is, we're not a bad person for doing this, getting caught up in these ways. These are just ways that we've got stuck, we've got tangled. And our job really in the Dharma practice is just to see where we're tangled and begin to untangle the tangles. And this spotlight of investigation really helps us to do that, because we can kind of go, okay, this isn't helpful. Let me just go, not having to force away anything that's bad, but just seeing it. As Rob Babea's book says, it's the seeing that frees. It's the seeing that frees. Seeing clearly allows us to go in a different direction and experience greater freedom. So I'm going to finish off just by saying that in a longer talk, I talk about different ways we can investigate, but I'm just going to name them for now, maybe come back and look at them another time. But some other ways of seeing that can be very helpful. One is just to use the lens of impermanence. as a kind of a way of investigating, of just looking at our experience, and whatever comes up, see, oh, I'm getting caught here. Okay, notice that, how that comes and goes. And if I don't keep tangling with it, I can just let it come and go. And that everything can come and go. You know, it can all come and go, and I can shift my relationship to my experience, and I can untangle myself from where I was tangled just by using this lens of changing, impermanence, and not clinging, just seeing the impermanence of all of this phenomena, all these phenomena. Another way we could look at is, another lens we could use is of not self, you know, and we can consciously, whatever's coming up, if we get hooked on, we're angry with somebody about something, oh, they're doing this, you know, we can say, okay, not me, not mine, you know, so that we kind of put a frame around that, the energy and that emotion of anger. And rather than fueling it by saying, oh yeah, they really are, they're so mean, they did this to me, and then he said this, and then they said that, rather than doing that, we say, oh, okay, this is anger. It's not me, not mine. And if we can do that, we can kind of more and more see that this, what we call anger, is actually an impersonal energy. It's an energy that comes up that we can get hooked on, and we can create a self around, a sense of a self around, with a story in our minds, this person doing this, they're doing this, bad people, etc. But we can see that it's actually an unskillful relationship. That anger, when it's not wisely channeled, that anger is just an skillful relationship with our experience, with our thoughts, with our emotions, with what's information is coming in from the world. We're just responding in a way that's not wise, not helpful. So using that lens, or that way of seeing of non-self, not me, not mine, can be a way of investigating and loosening our tangles, loosening the clinging that we have, and allowing us to let go. And finally, another one is just bringing in the lens of the way of seeing of loving kindness and compassion, using that as a frame, as a lens with which we look at all of our experience. You know, not just people, not just metta, loving kindness to people, but also to experiences, to situations, to events. Can I meet this with kindness? Can I meet it all with compassion? So if that becomes the way of seeing, then everything that comes up can be held and met in this way, with the lens, or through the lens of kindness and compassion. So all of these ways of seeing our experience, with them we're using the teachings and the understanding of the Dharma to investigate our experience and to incline our mind towards skillful mind states and away from unskillful ones. And my invitation would be to just reflect on this quality of investigation, both in meditation and in daily life. These practices, these qualities, are really about daily life, our life as a whole, as much as they are about meditation in particular. Meditation just gives us a kind of a vehicle, you know, to really slow things down and bring awareness to our experience, but investigating in our own lives, in everyday life as well. Am I caught up in clinging here? Am I caught up in unskillful states? Just to be aware of that. And can I let go? So this second quality of investigation, that the more we deepen into investigation, the more energy arises out of that. And next time I'll look at this question of energy and how that kind of unfolds out of this quality of curiosity, of interest in our experience. So I'd be happy if if we think about it, have any questions, share them in the chat or share them in the group in a minute. But we'll pause here and invite Emily to lead us in some movement, and then we'll come back for some sharing in the group. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Hugh. That was beautiful. Let's just stand up and take a moment to sense the air around you, feeling as you swing from side to side. You can be gentle with yourself. And then moving it higher if you'd like, up to shoulder height. Just noticing. And then open your arms up wide, reach up. Exhale, lower your shoulders from your ears. And then grasp your left wrist in your right hand. And extend out towards the right and tilt. Just as by lengthening out and shifting over. Inhale up and switch wrists, lengthening out to the left, lowering down, opening up the right side of your body, breathing into that right rib cage and softening with the exhale. And then inhale up and float your arms down. Bring your shoulders to roll and up around your ears, feeling the energy there. And then roll them the other way. And then draw your hands up to cactus arms. Exhale, float them down. Rising up. Floating them down. And rise up. Extend them out and take a look over at your left palm. The right palm is down and switch to view the right. And switch. And switch. Last time to the left. And to the right. And float both arms down. Roll your shoulders independently. Take a moment to just move with this. And roll them the other way. And then come to center. Grasp your hands behind your waist. Inhale, lifting up your head. Lifting your chest. Exhale, lower your hands down, engaging those shoulder blades. Holding here. And then release back to the waist. Allow your chin to come down to your chest, lengthening your neck. And then inhale, lifting your head, lifting your chest. Exhale, lower your hands down, drawing your shoulder blades together. Back to your waist. Drop your head, chin to chest. And then float your arms up. And allow a dance of however you might wish to move. Singing with your arms. And then come to center. Place your hands above your knees. Come into a flat back, extending your head away from your pelvis. And then exhale, lower your head, your neck, your shoulders. You don't have to go far, just feel the extension of your spine and the pull of gravity, allowing. Breathing here, noticing your ribs. Exhaling, softening. And then bring your hands above your knees. Press on your feet and roll up your spine, tucking your tailbone under, bringing your shoulders up to your ears. Exhale, lower. And then drawing your hands up, come into prayer position above. Bring your hands to heart center and take a bow. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you. Lovely, lovely movement. There we go. So, please feel free to share anything if you have any questions or any, not just questions, but anything you'd like to share, what's alive for you right now. You might share in the chat, or you might, if you'd like to, put your hand up and share in the group anything that might have come up for you. It would take a few minutes to invite that. And Kerry.
Hello.
Hello, Kerry.
Hi, Hugh. Thanks for today, and thanks, Emily. Very good little physical session there. Thank you. Just got the book already free from Bruce Tift in the last couple days. And I think you've mentioned it before. Someone here has mentioned Bruce Tift and his work. And just reflecting on what you're teaching this morning as well on how we process our experiences, our relationship to our experiences. And that stretches my particular type of brain chemistry a little bit. And I see how meditation really helps you grasp this relationship to experience. Can you reflect any more on that? Maybe different words or something that would help me to grasp that a little bit more. Relationship.
Could you say that again, Kerry? Sorry.
Just relationship to experience, how we process. Bruce Tift says, or Aldous Huxley in Bruce Tift's book says, experience is not what happens to a man, is what a man does with what happens to him.
Yeah.
Aldous Huxley is what Bruce Tift wrote. So Tift says, how we process our experience deeply influences how we make use of it.
Yeah.
And I hear you reflecting a little bit on that today too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You know, in the Buddha's teachings of dependent arising, it's really a coming together of conditions, and it's a coming together of, let's say, something happens that we're responding to. You know, there's a situation or something we hear or something we learn, and then there's kind of what we bring to that experience or that learning. You know, what the Buddha's teachings point to is that what we bring to the experience is potentially transformative. You know, so if, you know, Vladimir Putin does something and it brings up anger in us, or it brings up fear in us, that's not, you know, that's one response to something that happens, to something he does or something anyone does. The experience, what our experience is fundamentally different based on how we meet it. So if I meet that what is done with an open heart, with kindness, with compassion, with understanding, it will be a completely different experience I have than if I meet that thing that has happened with resistance, with blame, with judgment, with fear. It'll be completely different. That nothing has an independent existence. Everything comes out of causes and conditions and is a dependent co-arising. It dependently arises. It arises dependent on the conditions themselves. So the Buddha is saying, I think, very much the same thing, that how we meet our experience is decisive, really. And that's why he's telling us, cultivate the qualities of heart and mind that will allow you to be free in whatever circumstances arise. It's not an easy thing, but this is kind of what the practice points to, that we can, if we have a heart and mind full of loving kindness and compassion, also accompanied by wisdom, so that compassion and loving kindness isn't purely just, sentimental, or it's not unwise, but it's wise. We know where the barriers and boundaries are that we need to create, etc. When our heart is open in that way, then our freedom is really unassailable, unshakable, because it's not dependent on things being a certain way. I was reflecting earlier this morning in a session I did, an Insight Timer, on attitudes, on something that comes from a book called Attitudes of Gratitude, which I think is a 12-step kind of approach. It says, our attitudes are our mental stances, the positions we hold vis-a-vis life. In some ways, our attitudes determine everything, because they are the glasses through which we see the world. Our attitudes. So are we going to cultivate attitudes which are conducive to happiness and well-being, or are we going to cultivate attitudes that are conducive to suffering? And when I was speaking about ways of seeing, that's really what I'm talking about, that these are ways of viewing our experience and relating to our experience that lead to freedom. That's why they're helpful. That's why, it's useful to employ them and use them. So it's, in a word, probably too many words, what you said, very much, comports with and connects with the teachings of the Buddha of like, this is, how am I meeting this moment? And
well, I guess I see mindfulness as giving us that space to not repeat maybe a behavior and how we've reacted to similar situations in the past, but to choose a new behavior in that moment.
Well said, Kerry. It's what Viktor Frankl said, between the stimulus and the response is a space, and in that space lies our ability to choose, what you just said. And in our ability to choose lies our growth and our freedom. So that choosing, first the space, then the choice. And obviously a wise choice leads to greater freedom, and an unwise choice leads to suffering. And that's what we're cultivating. We're cultivating the awareness that lets us really see, and then the investigation and these other qualities that make it very clear to us, this is a direction that's more helpful to go in, and this is less helpful.
So growing a relationship with your suffering and your hardship, almost like a back and forth sort of relationship, like a real, why is this happening? Why am I reacting? Is there a better way to react than just my gut, what sometimes my gut might say?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Kerry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hugh, I'm seeing a question in the chat from Laura. And also, I think Kirsten has a question for you.
Yeah, I've got Kirsten and and Bettina. So it would maybe I saw Kirsten first, and so Kirsten, and then we'll go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I find that this is working in my life, that I'm investigating. But what I find most interesting is, when others are upset around us and they want to drag you into their drama, I guess is the best way to say it. And then when you remain calm, I think many times they interpret it as you don't care. And it's kind of hard to respond. So I had a situation yesterday where that happened, but I kind of walked away because I didn't want to fuel the fire anymore, right? But I don't know. That's a challenge, I think, is, coming across as caring and not getting engaged with the trigger, but, letting go of their response, I guess, too. Anyways, hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's where the proverbial rubber meets the road, isn't it? With other people, and particularly those we're close to, and people who know where our buttons are, and maybe not necessarily deliberately, but know where to, where we're reactive. And so, yeah, it's so what if you think about it, what you said what you did this most recent time, what do you find, or what could you find most helpful in those situations, bearing in mind these teachings of mindfulness and investigation, compassion, loving kindness? What would be ways that might allow you to to respond wisely and hold what you're experiencing kindly and wisely?
Well, exactly. So I did a little bit of both, meaning I did a little bit of rain because I know their anger triggers me, and I'm sure I seem more numb, I guess, when I'm talking to them. But then what I've found most useful probably is then doing loving kindness, and especially doing loving kindness towards that person, because that's what, your whole comments today, I kept writing down, right, what's beneficial and unbeneficial, or skillful or unskillful. And I found the most skillful response has been to bring loving kindness. It's not excusing whatever happened, but I mean, it was real neutral. It had nothing to do with me. They were trying to share something, and I obviously couldn't help. So then, of course, I need to bring loving kindness to myself, because, of course, we can't always have all the answers, right? And we wish we could, right?
Yeah, I think a lot in those situations, the heart practices, I think, are really powerful. Just if we can come back, because we easily forget and we get caught up in our heads because we're in a kind of reactive mode or a fear mode, or etc. If we can just pause enough, as we were talking about before, just open that space, and then there's space to bring in the kindness. Right. And bringing the kindness, as you said, to yourself first is essential, because, if you're not in a space where you're open enough, then you don't really have the resources to be able to kind of be kind and wish the other person well. So just taking the space to do that, and just, I think everyone knows what the practices are, just pausing, bringing awareness to our experience. What we talked about today, investigating, but a lot compassion and loving kindness. But it's not easy, it's particularly in those close-up situations, and we don't have a lot of time, and we can feel under pressure. So, very easily reactivity comes up. So one of the things of, if we can make some space, sometimes it's the kind of thing of like, well, can we just, talk about this a little bit later? I feel the need for, to get more grounded in order to do that, and have the space. So different skillful means we can use, but definitely hear you, and I'm sure everyone else does, because I'm sure everybody gets caught up in one way or another in these, in these tangles. But the practices, are powerful, to help us, help us disentangle, as it were. So thank you, Kirsten.
No, thanks.
Thank you. Bettina? Oh,
Sorry. Hi. Yes, thank you. It was a wonderful talk. So I was taking notes, and I love what the Buddha asked, what's important to investigate and what is less important to investigate. And of course, my mind went to some of the people that I work with who have, anxiety conditions. And there are two things I was just curious if you might have any additional comments about. One is, a lot of people that I work with are, they want to be prepared for everything. Like they want to overthink. They want to, feel like they will never be caught off guard. So they think a lot, about that, being prepared. And then the other piece are, people who just get caught up in overthinking, overanalyzing every little thing, like getting on an elevator with people and thinking, oh, I said something stupid or I was too awkward, like because they have maybe social anxiety, and then they get really caught up in thinking about that and then judge themselves for thinking about it. So I guess the common denominator is people who have a tendency to overthink and kind of see it as something adaptive. Or would you have any additional thoughts about that?
yeah, I mean, I think in the end, it comes down to, does it lead, is it onward leading towards freedom, or is it leading towards suffering? And, as they say in the law, res ipsa loquitur, the thing speaks for itself. If somebody is coming to see a therapist, it tends to indicate that something is, you may not be patients or clients, it may be friends as well. But, typically, if we're doing this, at a certain point, we see that it's actually not serving us, that it's causing us a lot of stress in our relationships and in our life and in, just getting by in the world. So if a person doesn't think that it's a problem, then obviously they can keep on doing that like any other way of being. It's our own choice and our own decision. But what the teachings invite us to do is just to look at where our suffering is. And in that situation, if somebody is caught up in a lot of anxiety, that's not serving them, obviously, is it? And so, the Dharma provides, a great many helpful tools for working with anxiety, as psychology and therapy does as well. But I see it at root, maybe some other things as well as this, but I see it as at root as worry and anxiety are unskillful habits of mind. They're fueling, certain, as you were saying, certain ways of being in the world that we think will make us safe. As you said, if I think enough about things, I'll cover every possible eventuality and I'll be safe and my family will be safe, And in doing that, as you said, we're overthinking, we're over worrying, and it becomes debilitating. And so, if you see something, doing is a mistake, the first thing to do is to kind of pause and say, okay, can I notice I'm doing that? And can I stop doing it? And can I lessen the amount that I do it? Can I notice when I'm going, oh, there's another anxious thought. Okay. Can I breathe? Can I come back? So just the awareness, the mindfulness practices of just coming back and choosing to be present rather than to default to our thoughts, default to our worried thoughts. So the practice of just seeing and noticing, and then investigation can be very helpful. Of like, okay, is this leading to happiness or is it leading to suffering? Well, if I'm caught up in anxiety and I'm having to take meds or whatever, and I'm not getting to sleep at night and I'm waking in the night, then that's a good signal that things aren't working. And, that we need some wholesome practices, maybe some meds for a while, but also some skills that can help us untangle ourselves from that. So mindfulness and investigation can be powerful tools, and compassion and loving kindness obviously as a part of that, because very likely other mind states will come up that will make it difficult, and the more kindness we can bring in, the better. So I think I think the practices that we're working with and we're exploring are hugely helpful. They might need some other supports as well, but that are hugely helpful in that process of untangling. I mean, so what comes up for you, Bettina? Does that kind of address what you're exploring today?
Yes, it does. Thank you. That's very helpful. All of this has been very helpful. So thank you.
Thanks, Bettina. Maybe we'll finish off just time-wise with Gabriella, and good to see you.
Hi, Hugh. Hi, everybody. I'm so grateful to be here. And what came up for me was the part where you said not trying to make people other than who they are, or not trying to change people, or what came up for me was an experience that I had yesterday. I was invited on a walk with somebody who I don't know very well, and I went, and it was a very, very extremely uncomfortable experience. And I noticed this person was bringing up conversations and topics that we see fundamentally different views on. And it was a bit triggering. And I had said, it was something about somebody being super, super careful around COVID and wearing masks and having things delivered. And I said, well, people need to do what they need to feel safe. But her response was, to point out how anyway, it started going down the rabbit hole. And I found myself in this position of realizing and investigating how uncomfortable I was, because there was a whole nother topic too that had to do with compassion. And also noticing that I could feel it in my body, and also that I was really trying to focus on wise speech and not trying to, even though I gave my opinion very subtly, I didn't try to fight it. I didn't try to make her wrong. I didn't try to make myself right, which is new behavior for me. I have to say, over the last few years, I've been really working on wise speech and around letting other people have their own, just not having to be right. I mean, there's something in the 12 steps of which I'm in that say, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? Right. And I was like, but the investigation of sitting with discomfort with somebody for a number of like a good 2 hours, and then I think the other part too was the compassion of investigating that, even though this person and I have completely different views on compassion and kindness and people and, other kinds of things around homelessness and things like that, that I don't have to dislike her, but I also don't have to spend time with her. And that was very new for me, because I want to make that person wrong. Right? Initially, my mind wants to make that person it's very funny because what I noticed was, oh my gosh, she's so judgmental. And then came my mind, I am so judgmental on people who are judgmental. I am so judgmental. Like, look at this, calm up. So anyway, but that was what was coming up for me. Very interesting, and so grateful to have that opportunity to pause and not say anything and just be with the experience that I really don't want to go through again. You know? That's it for me. Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you, Gabriella. That's really super helpful. I think what you said about, I don't, that you don't have to make her wrong, but you don't have to hang out with her. That there's kind of compassion and wisdom in there. That compassion doesn't mean you have to go out for a walk with her every week and kind of use that as your practice. You could do, but there's wisdom may say that maybe there are other things you can investigate in your life. So yeah, just appreciate that and appreciate the how just the bringing our practice into the midst of our lives and how challenging it is. And we all experience some version of this. There's always a difficult person until we're fully enlightened, and then they're still difficult, but we're not experiencing it necessarily as difficult. But for most of us, it's a journey, and the practice can be hugely helpful to us, and in providing those spaces, that we can pause and breathe, and we can keep our hearts open to ourselves and the other person, and yeah, it's a training, and it takes time, it takes energy, it takes all of these qualities that we're exploring. So thank you, Gabrielle, and thank you, everyone. Let's pause with the sharing now, and just finish with a short meditation and some announcements. So just take a moment to come into a posture that's comfortable and relaxed. You could close your eyes if you like to. And just let your breathing help you settle and arrive. Just opening to whatever's present for you in the body and in the heart and in the mind. Just holding it all with kindness, with compassion. You might finish off today just by breathing in and wishing yourself well. If it's helpful, you could put your hand on your heart, maybe the other one on the belly. Just caring about yourself, this life. So many things that we're working with, so many things that are difficult, painful, challenging. Just holding yourself with kindness, with care, with compassion. Breathing in a wish of kindness for yourself. May I be happy. May I be safe. May I be held in loving kindness, filled with loving kindness. May I live with ease and with kindness. As you breathe out, just wishing everyone here well. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May you be held in loving kindness, filled with loving kindness. May you live with ease and with kindness. Wishing yourself well as you breathe in. Wishing everyone here well as you breathe out. Feeling yourself held in community, in Sangha. And as you breathe out, including all beings everywhere, all beings near and far, all ages and races, religions, abilities. Letting your heart be open to everyone. Holding our world with loving kindness and compassion at this very difficult time. Just remembering that we can come back to our practice, we can come back to our hearts, we can come back to the present moment. I'll finish with this poem from Muhyiddin Ibn al-Arabi. There was a time I would reject those. There was a time I would reject those who were not of my faith, but now my heart has grown capable of taking on all forms. It's a pasture for gazelles, an abbey for monks, a table for the Torah, Kaaba for the pilgrim. My religion is love. Whichever the route love's caravan shall take, that shall be the path of my faith. Whichever the route love's caravan shall take, that shall be the path of my faith. So we'll finish with some announcements. I'll just share a couple of things I have coming up. Beginning on March 29th, I have a 7-week series on the heart practices of loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity, these treasures of the Dhamma. I'm really looking forward to, digging in more deeply to metta and the other karuna, mudita, upekkha, these four heart practices, what Gil Fronsdal calls the four faces of love, the four faces of love. So I hope you can join me for these. That'll be, I think we're sharing those in the chat, and it's on the IMCW website. And then the final thing to share is, as you know, most people know that there's no charge, no cost for the classes. You're invited, if you're able and inclined, to make a donation. What's known as dana in Pali, generosity, and it's how the teachings have come down through 2,500 years to us today. And it's a practice we're committed to keeping going. So thank you for your support, and thank you for your presence here today.